from a survival standpoint, think about it. If you had that same ego when you walk into a dojo for the first time and you look at a black belt like you're about to beat his ass and you've never done jujitsu, and he literally stares in your soul like, okay, why haven't you broken eye contact with me yet? Because I will literally strangle you, right? Like that dynamic, if you had that same naive nutsack 100 years ago, you would have actually got choked out and died. They would have actually, you would have stared at, but
now they just record you, they beat you up a little bit, put you on YouTube and embarrass you. That's it. Sam, kind of going back to that, like where you do come from. Obviously, we grew up together and, you know, played ball with your brother. What made you decide that this was a route that you wanted to take? This is a gritty, daunting, frankly, from where you started, let's just, you know, call a spade. You were way behind because so many kids come in with wrestling, or so many kids come in with jiu-jitsu, or so many kids come in with...
They come in also with what I was talking about earlier, the life circumstances that nearly guide and direct them into into a career field like that.
Exactly.
Coming from a less, let's just say, fortunate circumstance.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I know that obviously, you know, you got picked on as a kid, and and that's what happens when you have older brothers and their friends and this, of course. But do you think that is like that's a big staple in it, or do you think it was just something that you happened to find and you fell in love with?
Honestly, I love this question because I never really know how to answer it. The best way to answer it that I've found right now is I just stumbled upon it. I had no purpose stepping into that world, and just one day decided like I was just passing by the gym and I saw the yellow and black letters glowing, and I was
something about yellow and black. Yeah,
it just kind of draws attention.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I just stepped into the gym and asked like for a trial class, how much it would cost and everything. They got me set up, and honestly, I just got my ass beat day in, day out for the first... So like for the first month, it was like choppy. It wasn't like every single day, but it was like I would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday night. And then the next week I would go Tuesday, Thursday night. And then I would just keep on getting my ass beat. And each time I would be like, holy fuck, this is crazy. Like I don't know why, but I love this shit.
Would it be safe to say that there is nearly a primitive urge within all men that because a lot of us don't experience near life-threatening circumstances, that overcoming that near-threatening life circumstance gives us an indescribable and invaluable sense of fulfillment and meaning, that fighting, but realistically like jiu-jitsu and MMA, nearly deliver that at every single class, every single day, every single time you go in, every single time you go into the dojo. Because it's that you legit are feeling like you might die when you get choked. And if you don't, with humility and humbly tap, then guess what? You go to sleep. You break your arm. You get your ankle twisted. You get your knee twisted. Like, the fulfillment that you probably found, especially being on the extreme end of coming from a place of not so much discomfort and a place of more, let's just say, with more security, for you to be able to, like the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, back in the day, left his castle to actually see what the real world was like. And when you realize not only is there suffering in the world, but there's suffering that you can overcome, it gives you a certain level of, oh, I don't want to do nothing else but feel this again.
Yeah.
Legit.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. That's how I fell in love with, like, when I was telling you about, like, Muay Thai. Like, when I fell in love with Muay... We can kind of go in on real quick. Do you guys want to play off of that? Like, do you have any insight off of like what I just said, or anything immediately response off that? Okay,
I have nothing for you.
Cool. I wasn't rambling on that, was I?
No.
Before we get into this, that's the same sort of like thing with Muay Thai. Like when I was first learning mixed martial arts, different forms of martial arts, it started with Wing Chun. with Ip Man, right? Started with Wing
Wow.
Chun. Us as kids, me, Morgan, my brother Michael, always watched like kung fu movies, and we loved kung fu movies as kids.
You guys are kid Wing Chun around the house.
Wing Chun.
That's awesome.
And then like I started taking a vested interest in learning Jeet Kune Do, you know, like which is hard to self-teach yourself Jeet Kune Do because of how limited teachers in Jeet Kune Do there already are, I guess. Wing Chun is an old form of Kung Fu. It's an actual, in my opinion, one of the most practical forms of Kung Fu. Kung Fu, Chinese Kung Fu, has some, pun intended, woo-woo-ness to it, because like wushu, right? Has some woo-woo-ness to it that is justified when people criticize it in terms of its practical real-life application. But Wing Chun, because of its dynamic striking with its hand striking and its head striking, allows a certain level of practicality other Kung Fu martial arts don't necessarily offer. And Jeet Kune Do is a type of martial art, one of the first MMAs that blends all fighting styles with zero rules. Bruce Lee was on some...
The OG Lethway.
Don't get me started!
The OG Lethway.
So, Bruce Lee, his daughter even said, I don't think he would do well in modern-day MMA because in modern-day MMA, there's all these rules. Like, my father would have been gouging eyeballs and like biting people and shit because that's what Jeet Kune Do is about, the art of actually surviving and fighting to its most extreme degree.
Opposed to sanctions.
It's for survival. Right. Yeah, all martial arts are, and that's why they are so humbling, is because they are designed to really hurt someone.
They're designed to tap into that true survival of the fittest instinct that all animals have, but more importantly, human beings have lost, especially with regards to not only identifying that feeling of, let's just say, primal urgency, but knowing how to handle it in the moment.
Right.
And experiencing that through jujitsu, MMA, and actually now doing it as a profession, there's probably no more addicting feeling than constantly feeling that sense of accomplishment every day.
Especially now that you're not just getting your ass kicked all the time.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Now I'm at least like a little bit tenured, not crazy like vet or nothing. Like I'm only like 4 years into this shit in May, so still really new to the game. I mean, I'm only 3 fights deep. My first fight was like 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and like it's just crazy witnessing the levels, because there is levels to this shit, and it's just insane to witness. Because like I'll be like after my fight, my first fight that I won, it felt like I was worth $1 million.
Yeah. Felt like you were never coming down off that mountain, huh?
I come into the gym, I get my ass beat by some white belts, bro.
Nothing better.
That's the awesome thing about
shit.
Yeah. That's honestly what made me part of what made me fall in love with it is it instantly teaches you humility. Instantly. I mean, it doesn't matter even if you were a kid and you grew up maybe kickboxing or doing taekwondo or doing jujitsu. You haven't been around for a little while. You haven't been practicing. You haven't been riding your bike.
But that's
you walk in and you get put down real quick. Right. You got, okay, let me bring myself down a couple pegs and let's start learning. From
a survival standpoint, think about it. If you had that same ego when you walk into a dojo for the first time and you look at a black belt like you're about to beat his ass and you've never done jujitsu, and he literally stares in your soul like, okay, why haven't you broken eye contact with me yet? Because I will literally strangle you, right? Like that dynamic, if you had that same naive nutsack 100 years ago, you would have actually got choked out and died. They would have actually, 100%. You would have stared at, but
now they just record you, they beat you up a little bit, put you on YouTube and embarrass you. That's it.
That's like I have family that I've intimately talked to, and I've had mentors who spent tens of years in prison. And when you understand the respect factor and, like, again, the primalcy of having to not only tap into, but control and sheathe that primalcy in the prison culture, it's if you walk by a cell and just peripherally look into that and they catch you looking in, something as disrespectful as that is like, oh, you arrogantly, egoistically think you can be a part of my business? Who the fuck are you?
Right.
The reason why they hold that accountability in prison is because the primacy of how men act in that environment is as close to how men actually acted 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the implication of staring at somebody too long in a dojo may not be the same implication as in prison, or as 100 years ago, but the same
It's
primal
as close
urges.
as you can get. It's as close as you can get.
The understanding of why that dissolution of the ego is important through settings like being in a jiu-jitsu class or an MMA, it's something that we're blessed to be able to facilitate that primalcy now, when back in the day, the only way to have learned it was to have actually experienced it and went through it. When I got jumped as a sophomore, instead of getting jumped, if it was 100 years ago, that same behavior would have gotten me killed at 15.
Yeah.
And if I didn't reconcile with that fact, I wouldn't have reconciled with the emotion and the behavior that caused me to experience those trials.
Right.
So, yeah, that humbling, being able to be on top of the world. Everybody posting, talking about Sam the Savage. Let's go, 1-1, let's go. Only up from here. And then the next day, to get fucked up by a white belt is like, okay, yeah, maybe I do need to check my shit. Because though I was justified in feeling on top of the world yesterday, I need to now reset because today's a new day.
That's right.
Most definitely.
Gegard Mousasi in his in his interview with in one of his recent interviews with Ariel after mollywhopping Austin Vanderford,
man,
he said before the fight, he said, today I feel like I'm the best middleweight in the world, and then Ariel had him on again Monday, and he said, Saturday I was the best middleweight in the world, and Ariel goes, why won't you just say you're the best middleweight in the world? And Gegard goes, tomorrow somebody else may be.
Man.
And that's the most honest thing you've ever heard from a world class.
I think that's the indicative articulation of those who are world class.
Yeah.
Because those who are world class recognize if I get complacent and succumb to the silk sheep mindset, then I'm quite literally going to fall off of this pinnacle. And then somebody will replace me on the next day.
Yeah.
It can happen at any moment.
Any moment. So it's important to make sure you milk every day with all the effort you have, to where when you sleep at night, you literally go, I literally couldn't have done any more than I did today. See you tomorrow. And you go to bed and you wake up the next day and do it again. That's the Sisyphus battle. Every single day, bearing that burden of that load on you, no matter what life throws at you, but saying, this is my responsibility, and I'm keep pushing up this rock until I fucking can't anymore.
Yeah.